Broadcasting live from the Indiana Physical Therapy Studios. This is Sports Central. WKJG AM Fort Wayne, ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM. The following is a special presentation of high school sports. It's the High School Coaches Show. Here's your host, Justin Kenny.
It's week 9, everybody. Welcome in, everyone, to the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumbach Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kenny. DC Hendricks producing. Final regular season week of the year as we approach Friday night. And so many people say, man, it's gone by super fast. I feel like it's normal, DC. I don't know about you. Did it fly by for you?
Yes, it definitely flew by, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I was making fun of you walking by me at Media Day, and now we're approaching the last week.
And now you're making fun of me in the studio.
Some things change, but some things haven't changed.
The locale changes.
That's right.
But how you treat me on a daily basis.
And the first guest as well. I don't treat either of you guys very well.
You're
pretty mean.
Yeah, you are pretty mean to us. But just a couple seconds, we'll be joined by the aforementioned Dan Vance, the one that also is a target of ridicule by DC Hendricks. Andy Thomas of the Angola Hornets will join us about 6:15. We'll talk some Angola football. The Hornets winners of 4 straight entering the final week of the season. They have a interesting game coming up on Friday. Jared Souter, bottom of the hour. Leo Lions. Probably the biggest game of the week is between Leo and Cal, both 7-1 entering week 9. So probably the premier game on the schedule in week 9. So we'll talk to Coach Souter about his team. And then Jason Dorfler will wrap it up, head coach of the Northrop Bruins. And we struggle to get Fort Wayne Community Schools coaches on because they don't get out of school until late. So they practice later than everybody else. So we're going to have to thank Jason Dorfler for scrambling and coming on with us, because not often are we able to get a Fort Wayne Community head coach on the show. So that's going to be the show till 7 o'clock, talking area high school football. And wrapping up the regular season this week, there's a lot to talk about from last Friday to this Friday to sectional draw that came out on Sunday. Let's talk all about it with our first guest. Dan Vance, OutsideTheHuddle.net, joins us. Dan, what's going on, my man?
Oh, not much, man. I'm ready to get into the postseason now.
You, I'm sure, have felt like this took forever because you're a basketball guy, so you just want to get through football.
Well, I'm actually going to agree with DC. I think it flew by. I feel like basketball season just kind of came out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, you're already counting down the top 50 at OutsideTheHuddle.net, aren't you?
Yeah, top 50, and we're not too far away from, about a week away from starting our girls basketball previews. Media Day for girls basketball and boys basketball this Thursday. So basketball is here, even though football and volleyball that a lot of the girls are playing aren't quite over yet.
Yeah, still plenty to talk about, particularly on the football field. And Dan, we were both out last Friday night. You took in some Snyder and Bishop to Wenger, a 14-7 game. What did you see out there that you took out of that game with 2 power programs looking to make an impact come playoff time?
Saw a lot of really good defense out there last week, and it's funny because all 21 of the points were scored in the first half, but I think it's possible that the best defense was played in the first half. Teams really forced themselves into uncomfortable situations, forced each other into uncomfortable situations, and I think we saw 2 really good football teams. We left out last week, we kind of felt empty going into the postseason, but we leave with 2 teams that I'm confident in Dwenger as I have ever been in 5A right now. And you watch Snyder in that loss, and I'm confident in how they can do in that 6A sectional. And, we look at the first matchup with them in Homestead, and you say Homestead's obviously got an easier road in the rematch. But I would say not so fast, because I think Snyder played very good football, limited what Dwenger could do, except for a couple of big plays that set up some of their winning in the trenches, which we expect Dwenger to do. But they weren't able to have their way with Snyder. I think that was impressive with Snyder's defense.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that 14-7 final score. Was it more a credit to the Dwenger defense, or should we be a little concerned about the Snyder offense entering the playoffs?
I think it's a credit to the Dwenger defense. Anybody who says anything about last week didn't have anything to do with the weather is crazy. It was frigid out there, consistent,
yes.
Hard rain, hard winds. For Snyder, a team that likes to throw the ball as much as they do and mix it up, it obviously had its effects. So I'm going to give Dwenger's defense credit, but I don't think that Snyder was able to get going the way they wanted to. It was wet, it was rainy, it was cold. John Barnes Jr.'s hands had to have been freezing out there. So the weather played a role last weweek. Not that it's an excuse for any team, but I don't think that there's any cause for concern with Snyder.
We need to give congratulations to the Homestead Spartans, 8-0. They win the victory bell regardless of what happens coming up on Friday in Week 9. It was a conversation entering the season that, hey, we got Homestead and Dwenger and Snyder kind of at the top of the conference. Throw them in a bag, pick one out. Here we are with those top three in the three spots atop the SAC. But what was the difference for Homestead to go 8-0 and 9-0 if they can win a game this week against was the Southside, I think they have at home? Yeah. So what was the difference between Homestead winning the bell as opposed to Dwenger or Snyder?
Well, I think there's two things, and we've talked all year about their depth, and we continue to see it. Braden Hardwick out for them. Ryan Burton comes in. This is a kid who has started varsity and played varsity for all 4 years as a safety and primarily a defender, comes in and has a great game carrying the ball, over 100 yards rushing, hasn't carried a football in a football game since 8th grade. And it just shows you the depth they have, and we've talked about that all year. They're able to step up. Somebody gets hurt. They've had a couple injuries. Cam Rogers hasn't been healthy. Luke Goody went down in the game. Braden Hardwick now being injured. They've been able to have the next guy step up. But I want to give a lot of credit to just their will. This was a team that just wanted to be the team that broke through for Homestead and won an SAC title, and they said that from day one. It was a major goal. Coach Chad Zolman told me a couple of weeks ago that this team has kept that in the forefront from the beginning. Not this is our goal, let's try to accomplish it. Every day of practice, their goal was to win the victory bell, and they willed themselves to it just as much as they got there based on their talent.
Speaking of conference champions, South Adams wrapped up at least a share of their first ACAC championship in 26 years since 1993. That was a stretch where they won 4 straight from 90 to 93. But, Dan, you mentioned earlier about the weather. Was it a factor out at Woodland last week when it was a scoreless game? South Adams ends up winning that game 15-0. Should we take anything out of that and be concerned about the Starfires? Or is it more of a perfect teaching moment for Grant Mosier, trying to fire up his team that seemingly has dispatched teams with ease week after week?
Yeah, I think it's a great teaching moment. I think that, again, it's a combination, like with the Snyder and Bishop Dwenger game, where there were two things in play there. Weather obviously played a role when James Arnold, the record-setting quarterback, is not able to throw the ball consistently. That was difficult for everybody around the area, with the exception of Bailey Parker at East Noble. But everybody else had trouble throwing the ball. And so that played a big role into it. But again, that next man up mentality, and Christian Somerset just goes ahead and breaks the school record for rushing yards in a game. And you got to remember, he's their number 2 running back. Nick Stuber has fought off some injuries all year, so he's only playing defense right now. So, it's good for them. It's a good teaching moment to stay close. Woodland is a team that's always going to be feisty. This is the first time that we've seen a complete Woodland team all year long. Ben Reedy returned at quarterback, though still nursing an injury, not 100%. David Bischoff is back. He didn't play the first several weeks. They've been injured, and they are finally 100% healthy. So I think a little bit of it, you got to give credit to Woodland. But, yeah, the rain played a role. And it's good for South Adams. You got to face a little bit of adversity. You don't really want to run into the playoffs just running by everybody, I don't think.
He is Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net joining us here on the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. Dan, we had the sectional draw last Sunday. We sat through 2 hours of a lot of talk and a lot of discussion on who was playing who. Let's start with East Noble in sectional 19. And it's a sectional that you look at and say they should be the decided favorite. You have 2 other teams in there with 1 loss, happen to be DeKalb and Leo. Both of those teams' 1 loss was to East Noble. Maybe throw in a 3-loss Northwood team as a team that could challenge. But this is a program in East Noble that has not won a sectional championship since 2003. So I know a lot of people are thinking and talking about this team potentially having a shot to win a 4A title or at least go deep into playoffs. But, man, they got to wrap up a sectional first, very winnable, but also some really competitive teams in there as well.
Yeah, it's an incredibly winnable sectional, but yeah, I think from top to bottom, that might want to be one of the more interesting sectionals. You look at it outside of Wawasee and really Northridge, and you got 6 teams that I think that can make an argument to compete. Columbia City sitting at 4-4, but this is not a slouch of a Columbia City team by any stretch. Angola at 4-4, but obviously they've had a big bounce back from their slow start. I think the Angola-Leo game is interesting. They played in week 2. Leo handled that game pretty easily, but a lot changes throughout the season, and we've seen that with Angola all season long on how they've been able to improve, get these guys who weren't as experienced ready. And so it's a whole different ball game. If East Noble plays DeKalb again, it's going to be different. If they play Leo again, it's going to be different. Angola's a different team. I think it's probably one of the most intriguing, if not the most intriguing, sectional going into week 1.
I think another one that jumped out to me, Class 2A, Sectional 35. You have Bluffton sitting there 6-2, Eastside 6-2. You're the aforementioned Woodland at 3-5, and Bishop Lures sitting there at 2-6. That a lot of people say, well, once they get into the sectional, they'll be okay. But I think there's a couple teams that we mentioned in Sectional 35 that could very well be better than Bishop Lures.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It comes down to health, and Bishop Lures is finally getting healthy. You got some guys back that have been out of the lineup, but Bluffton is healthy after they had a couple of minor things. Woodland being healthy again. It's a really interesting one because you got to look at it at the end of the day. That's one where coaching may come in big into play, and you have some very good coaches out there that know what they're doing, some long-tenured coaches, some younger guys who are really energetic about what they're doing and happy with their programs. It's going to be an interesting one. I think that obviously if you're Bluffton, you have to be happy about that draw, with an 0-8 Whitco, a 1-7 Prairie Heights, and a 4-4 Fairfield on your side of the bracket. But it's one where you could see 4 possible teams coming out of there, I think.
We kick off sectional play a week from Friday for classes 1 through 4. Class 5 and 6 will wait till Friday, November 1st to start. And I think a lot of intrigue with Bishop Dwenger and Northside, that rematch at North with the way the Legends are playing. But let's talk Carroll and Snyder. So many people want to talk about that Snyder-Homestead rematch. Carroll only loses to Snyder by 1 point, comes down to a blocked extra point. So round 2, Carroll going to Spuller to take on Snyder to open the postseason in Sectional 3. Should we expect another very close game between those two teams?
I think you're going to expect another close game. I think it comes down in a lot of ways to health. Carroll did not play many of their usual starters last week in their win, so they're going to be rested, but it comes down again to don't be too rested. Don't get too much out of the flow. Obviously, those guys will probably be back in the rotation a little bit this week against Wayne. But again, against the 0-8 team, they're not going to be. So you got to find that good balance if you're Carroll, where you need to have momentum with your key guys, your starters, your Jeffrey Beckers, and those guys. But at the same time, you don't want to get hurt. And that's a big thing about this Friday. With nothing on the line in the SAC, how many teams play their normal guys? How do you balance that momentum versus playing it safe? I think that's going to be really interesting when it comes to that game. Who can come in the healthiest? I expect another really good shootout in game between Snyder and Carroll.
Dan, before we let
our power poll up today, top 10 teams in the area. It's obviously the last one of the regular season.
I wonder who's number one.
Got a really interesting coach's corner from Kevin Mers, who writes for us every week. Given 5 reasons why Homestead's offense is so lethal, and that's something you and I have talked about, and how well they've played. Obviously, we're in the middle of our countdowns for our top 50 boys and girls. So we had number 25 for the girls today. That's kind of flown by, and Tiana White from Northrop. Number 43 of the boys, and Carroll's Ray Volmer, who's a big part of that Carroll football team as well. So those are going on, and then come Monday, we'll start breaking down the sectionals next week, and we'll have classes 1A and 2A on Monday, Class 3A on Tuesday, Class 4A on Wednesday next week. break all those down, and then you have to wait another week for 5 and 6A before they start playing.
A lot going on. Follow it all at OutsideTheHuddle.net through the rest of football season and basketball season as well. Dan, always a pleasure. We'll catch up to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That was Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net joining us to kick off the show as he does each and every week, bringing in some insight to Week 8, Week 9, and also looking ahead to the postseason. And, a lot of people always debate this time of year whether they should see the sectional, whether we shouldn't see the sectional. I think it was very balanced in terms of the matchups. We got some early matchups that could decide sectionals. Other will be later on. Of course, we wait an extra week for 5A and 6A. So I'm not as much for football seeding in the sectional as I am for basketball, and that's a topic for another day. But I don't dislike the fact that we don't have seeding in football, that's for sure, but I know other people have differing opinions on that. We're going to take a break, come back. Coach Andy Thomas, Angola Hornets will join us. This is the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Now back to the High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Week 9 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kenny here with DC Hendricks. DC, do I still smell like onions?
Yes, it smells.
Yeah, really?
It's terrible.
Sorry, I was King Euros. It's one of those things where you can smell it and you're like...
It's pretty disgusting.
I don't know if anybody else can smell it.
Tyrone smells like onions.
It's pretty pungent in here. And I didn't even eat the majority of the onions on the Euro.
It smells like you bathed in it and used it as body wash.
I did not. Now, I don't have any proof of that. You're just going to have to believe me. But I did not do that. But I'll steer clear of King Euros from now on when I'm coming out here. I don't often eat there. I don't know how pungent the onions were, but it smells in here. It smells onions. So only about 45 or so minutes more, DC, then you're out of here. Thanks to Dan Vance before the break coming on of OutsideTheHuddle.net, breaking down some Week 9 action, also some postseason predictions, looking at the sectional draw. One team that I don't want to say it was an afterthought earlier in the year, but we kind of said, well, Angola 2 straight undefeated seasons. What are they going to do for an encore? And they come out against a very difficult schedule and start 0-4. And we would say, okay, well, it's just, a rebuilding year for Angola. Second half of the year, though, 4 straight victories going into a road date at Eastside coming up on Friday. So a resurgent Angola Hornets team, and we're going to talk all about it with Coach Andy Thomas, who joins us on the phone right now. Coach, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Not bad, and I'm sure I want to say you enjoyed the break of me not pestering you every week when you were winning games the last 2 years. But, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Coach, it's almost a tale of 2 seasons, at least from the outsider's perspective. But take us in to this team week to week, starting off playing a very difficult schedule, losing your first 4, now bouncing back to get to 500 and heading into Week 9.
Yeah, it was rough early for sure, especially, it's kind of like kids were in shock early when we have juniors in our locker room who had not been a part of a losing season, losing varsity regular season game, and seniors the same thing that hadn't happened since they were freshmen. So we kind of were in shock a little bit early, and especially the way it happened with Week 1, where we had the lead a couple different times, as much as I think 3 touchdowns at one point, and then 2 scores for a while there, and just couldn't hang on, and then had a chance with a 2-point conversion to tie it late and just get our hearts torn out. And the old saying, you never want to let a team beat you twice, as in you get so wound up and you're crushed so much after losing one game that it carries over to the next week. And I think that's what happened against Leo. And Leo's a great team, and DeKalb's a great team. But I think we were still feeling it from Week 1. And Leo they got after us right away. Things didn't go well early. We had problems in the kicking game early, and then they're up 14. We drive it down the field, fumble inside the 10, and they just really got after us up front. And Week 3, we're playing a team that's, I think, ranked 1 or 2 in Michigan right now. It hasn't lost yet. A team that's put guys in the pros and the Division I players on their roster. And then we kind of felt like, okay, here we are, Week 4. We're back to a more familiar conference team. And we knew they were going to be good. We knew this was going to be the best team that they had in a long time. And again, we had to lead 2 different times in that game. We tie it up right at the halftime, have a chance to take the lead on the next point, can't do it. And then they had a 7-point lead and then an 8-point lead at 2 different times in the third quarter. And finally just gave it away at the end. So it just not only to lose, but just to have our souls crushed 2 different times and then to get beat up a couple times, it was rough. But I'll give our kids credit. They just kept hanging in there, and we got after Lakeland pretty good, but we didn't know. I mean, they're a big physical team, and we had to prepare, and we haven't taken anything for granted here in these last 4 weeks, and last week we just had a heck of a victory against a quality Garrett team that's struggling, but we knew they were going to come out and play their butts off. So, you're right. It's been a tale of 2 seasons. We had some soul-crushing defeats in the first 4 weeks, and our kids could have packed it in, and they just wouldn't do it. They're still practicing hard and playing hard.
Yeah, Coach, I have to say, at 0-4, I can't imagine that locker room because, you're used to winning the last couple years. So it says a lot about your kids at 0-4 to say, hey, we're not done yet. String together 4 straight victories. I think that says a lot about some upperclassmen that hadn't experienced a lot of losses in years past.
Yeah, no question. And we continue to try to educate them all throughout the process that you get knocked down. You have one choice, and that's it. There's 0 other choice in the matter. You got to get up and dust yourself off and keep fighting. And our kids have done that. I think we practiced well for the previous 3 years, 4 years, and really this year was no different. Our kids still run around, and we just get a ton of reps and practice at a high pace and really move around well. Maybe in looking back on it, and players and coaches, we might have gotten away from a little bit of our physicality that we had the previous few years, and maybe we had to learn a lesson a little bit from that. And we've certainly got back to physical practice this year in the last month. So it's it's something that and I don't want to say I don't want to go through 4 losses, not whatsoever. And that 4 in a row, tough ones like we did. But sometimes we all have a tendency to relax, and I'm not saying we did. We were relaxing, but it's kind of eye-opening that once we started getting back to really having physical, difficult, pounding practices and getting after each other, and we've had a little bit of resurgence, and we're hoping to continue that.
Coach, looking at that offense, junior Tucker Hasselman was the new quarterback heading into the year. Brother Finley Hasselman was back in the backfield with you, Jacob Gibson as well. How was that offense with that turnover that you had at the skill position, maybe settling in and putting up some scores? I mean, they weren't bad the first half of the year, but it seems like some of those guys have really settled in here in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it as guys get more experience, they gain confidence, and we had some young guys that are just really coming on. Finley has some at fullback and running back. Really gain confidence. He just continues to get stronger and faster. He's a tough kid. Tucker gets more confidence at quarterback and knowing what he's supposed to do in our offense, taking what the defense gives him. And we're real proud of our young guys on offense, like Schreiber, another sophomore that has gotten better, learned both sides, and that had a big learning curve, but has done a good job. And we've had the Antonio Lavanos, Ryan Brantz. They've been around for a while, but they've also continued to get better. And really, we haven't. We've gone here. We are week 9. Maybe last week, and I don't even think so. We've had guys banged up. It's been one guy here, one guy there, freak accidents. Different things where we've had guys that have been limited, and we're finally here in the last couple of weeks able to get everybody on offense practicing together. Our guys up front have done well also, but our guys just kept working at it and kept believing that we were doing the right things. We didn't panic, and we felt like as long as we take care of the ball, that we had a shot at it. And except for last week in the sideways rain and the mud, which I'm sure caused problems for everybody, we've done a good job of valuing the football and taking care of the ball.
Coach, you wrap up the regular season on the road against the small school division champ of the NECC, Todd Mason, and the Eastside Blazers. A good test for your group heading on the road to face a quality opponent.
Oh, yeah, they are great. And they're young. They're young on offense, good mix on defense. And you can see this coming for a while. They've been good at the lower levels, good JV teams. We got our work cut out for us. They do a lot of things, running and passing. They're doing well. Quarterback's sophomore, classic playmaking type of kid. When something breaks down, he can run. And they're really good on defense. They're really running the ball well. They're putting kids in the right places with what they're doing on D. They're really forcing the issue and making plays on defense. So that's going to be a huge challenge. Our kids so far this week have been locked in, and we're looking forward to it. They're going to be a great quality opponent.
But I know you want to get a win too on Friday. But what do you want to see on Friday, win or lose, to make you feel comfortable going into next week, saying, "Hey, we're in a good spot with that rematch game against Leo to open the postseason"?
Well, I mean, we just got to show that we're locked in. But we've been locked in the last 2 days as far as having urgency and contesting everything. That there's no detail that's too small. No communication, no rep, no anything that's too small. If you're, and again, like you said, we cannot worry about Leo whatsoever. We have to be locked in on each side. We have to play well this Friday, but to show that we want to continue to be a good football team, which we told our kids even in the first 4 weeks. We kept getting in there on Saturday morning and saying, "Hey guys, we can still be a good football team." And they might have wondered what the heck we were talking about there for a while, but if we want to be as good as we can be, and we're not a huge big picture team, we just try to take it one day at a time, be as good as we can one day at a time, but we have to be locked in on the smallest of details and have urgency in everything we do. It has to happen this week in practice, and it has to happen on Friday for us to be as good as we can be.
Coach, always a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Good luck going to East Side this week and heading into the postseason. We'll catch up with you later.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Bye-bye. That's
Coach Andy Thomas, Angola Hornets. Back-to-back undefeated regular seasons the last 2 years, and they started off 0-4 this year, and it was a struggle. Quality opponents, quality losses to quality opponents, but 0-4 is 0-4, and it was not a familiar position for Angola through the first 4 weeks, but they respond. They beat Lakeland, Fairfield, Prairie Heights, and Garrett in the slop last week to get to 4-4. They head to Eastside this week, and then they get the Leo Lions to open the postseason, a team that beat them 33-13 in week 2. Speaking of the Leo Lions, their head coach, Jared Souter, will join us after the break. You are listening to the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Drive with a score. With a new Chevy from Crumback Chevrolet, you'll prefer to keep driving. Maybe in the new and redesigned Silverado, the most dependable full-size pickup and best-in-class fuel economy. Or the Equinox, with modern design and technology, all packaged into a safe and versatile crossover. Looking for more family space? Then the mid-size Traverse will get you where you're going in style and comfort, and you can't lose with the Malibu or the all-new Blazer. Score today and find new roads this season with a visit to Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven.
I'm Joe Adams. I'm a pharmacist. I'm also a parent that knows the pain of losing their child to an opiate overdose. We lose 64,000 lives a year due to this epidemic. No one is immune from this. Yes, I attained what I viewed as the highest level that I could reach within my profession. And yes, it happened to my family. Your pharmacist has a huge impact on you as a provider of healthcare information. It's important to have an open line of communication with your pharmacist about safe medication usage, including opioids. The members of the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy focus on ensuring that pharmacies and pharmacists are providing safe medications and patient services for you and your family. I will never see my son again. If you think it can't happen to your family, think again. Learn how to keep you and your loved ones safe at nabp.pharmacy.
Ice cream. All the ice cream in my house, in the world, and most of my stuffed animals.
My video games and my phone.
What would you give for your freedom? Would you give your eyesight? Would you give ever seeing the sunset again? Would you give the ability to see your children's future? Thousands of brave men and women who served in the United States Armed Forces have given their eyesight in defense of our freedom. And the Blinded Veterans Association wants to give them their freedom back, but it needs your help. Go to BVA.org to find out about how BVA's free programs and services, advocacy, education, peer support, scholarships, and more help America's heroes to not just deal with the emotional and physical issues of sudden sight loss or impairment, but actually work to get them back to the independent lives they deserve to live. Go to BVA.org to find out how you can make a difference. They fought for your independence, and by going to BVA.org, you can find out how to help these veterans regain theirs. Go to BVA.org today.
At Children's Cancer Research Fund, we believe a world without childhood cancer is possible, but it takes all of us. And whether it's developing a groundbreaking treatment or helping a girl realize her dream, everyone has a role in a child's cancer journey.
People ask me how I keep a smile on my face. It's easy when you have so many great people that take care of you and support you.
To find out how you can be a part of a child's cancer journey and a part of the cure, visit childrenscancer.org, a public service message from Children's Cancer Research Fund.
Standing up for what's right. Helping out when things go wrong. Raising our voices alone or together. Seeking the truth and speaking our minds. Not just making records, but breaking them. Fighting for victory on the battlefield and on the playing field. Seeing the world through new eyes and the earth from miles above. Redefining beauty, brains, and what it really means to be queen. Making ourselves heard on stage and on screen. Showing the way in Silicon Valley and showing up for others wherever help is needed most. Not just making our mark, but making a difference. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, preparing girls for a lifetime of leadership.
You're listening to the High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio, 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back to the Week 9 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. You'd think by Week 9 we'd have everything together, but no, DC Hendricks is dialing wrong numbers during the break. It's okay. I opened the show with thanks for joining us, everyone, a couple weeks ago. Or that, yeah, that was bad.
I suppose I'll let you slide this time.
It's all right. See,
what happened.
It's good-natured ribbing here, DC.
I'll let you slide this one time.
We just have fun here. It's loose.
Oh, that's what
That's why it smells like onions in here.
It smells really bad. The more you talk, the worse it gets.
That's why I keep talking. I'm not going to say anything because we're recording a podcast right after this. I'm going to go into Caleb Hatch's studio, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to see how long it takes him to go, you stink. You smell. That's probably him texting me right now saying, can you brush your teeth before you come here? Can you go find some gum? Pretty bad. I've never really eaten a King Euros. I didn't know how lethal it was, but it's apparently pretty bad with the onion breath in here. But thank you to Andy Thomas before the break. Joined us to talk some high school football. His team 4 straight wins heading into Friday's game at Eastside. His opponent in 2 weeks will be a familiar one in the Leo Lions, a team that Angola lost to 33-13 in week 2. But before Leo worries about the playoffs, they got a big one coming up in DeKalb County coming up on Friday. 7 o'clock kickoff at DeKalb, 7-1 versus 7-1. Jared Souter is on the line with us right now to talk all about it. Coach, how are you?
Good, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Coach. And while some teams kind of can look ahead a little bit, you cannot afford such a thing as you have DeKalb on the road this Friday. You guys ready?
I hope so. They're a very good football team, well-coached team, and we better be ready because they're a big physical team, and we're going to have to play our absolute best to win.
I feel like the last 2 weeks have been particularly impressive for you. Going to Huntington North as a very improved Vikings team and taking care of business by 47 points. And then Columbia City, quality passing attack, quality offense. You guys limit them to 14 points in a win last week. So playing pretty good football, at least from an outsider's point of view.
Yeah, we're happy with our kids right now, proud of their effort. I think as the season goes on, our younger kids are maturing and obviously getting better. We're playing quite a few sophomores on defense, and the things have really started to click for them the past 3 or 4 weeks. And quarterback Jackson Barber, he's started to really look good at that position. So real proud of how we played and the effort the kids have put in practice, and I just think that's showing up on Friday nights now.
When you look at Jackson Barber and inserting him into that position full time, was it something where you felt he's ready, or was it something like, look, he's going to have to take his lumps at some point, let's get him in there, and he has responded over the last couple weeks?
Yeah, I think it was a situation where we thought he was ready, but we knew also that he was surrounded by a good core group of seniors. When you have Peyton Wall and Owen Lance in the backfield and some good upperclassmen linemen up front, you maybe tend to run the ball a little bit more and trust that, and then let him kind of get comfortable in the passing game. And I think that came to fruition against Huntington North, where he had 203 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. So we thought he was ready, but we also didn't want to put too high of expectations on him. And and I think that it has allowed him to gain some confidence and to start playing better and improving each and every week.
Has the ability for Jackson to go vertical helped Peyton Wall find some holes?
I think so. I think anytime you can be a little bit more balanced, that it helps you. Now, with that being said, we didn't throw the ball much in that monsoon on Friday night. But I think we have the ability to, and I think when we can have that balance, we can put some points on the board. So Jackson's ability to do that can open some things up in the run game for us, and so we look forward to him doing that here in this week, and then continuing on in the playoffs.
One part of your defense I felt was a strength coming into the year, that linebacker core, guys like G.T. Baker, Michael O'Brien, Gavin James across that middle line that can kind of sneak up or drop back. I mean, has that come to fruition in terms of those guys being a strength of that D?
Yeah. They've done an outstanding job. G.T. Baker, can't say enough about him, and just his leadership defensively. We lean on him to help get us lined up every down and get the calls in, and he just does an outstanding job. He's our leader defensively, and he's a student of the game, a very intelligent player, and so he really does a great job in that role. And then guys like Michael Bryan and Gavin James have fulfilled that as well, and are pretty physical linebackers. So we're real happy with them, and really we're real happy with our defensive line. We thought coming into this year that might have been a weakness for us, but we have found some solid defensive linemen in Landon Livingston and Tom Bush at DT, and then sophomores Mason Sharon and DJ Allen at defensive end, and they've just gotten better and better each and every week. So that has really helped our linebackers as they kind of command more and more blocks up front. It allows our linebackers to run.
Yeah, Landon Livingston, a big sophomore for you. Rylan Crawford is a sophomore for you. We mentioned Jackson Barber, a sophomore. We talked to Coach Luke Amstutz about trusting some sophomores on his defense, and man, we're going to need sophomores to step up big. I remember how immature I was as a sophomore. I'm pretty much still immature, but I can't imagine how I was at 15 years old. But to thrust some of these guys into these positions where you really need them to produce, I mean, is it a scary proposition for you? Are you confident in putting sophomores in there? What's the attitude?
Well, I can tell you it's scary in week one.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because you've only seen them on a freshman field, and you're not quite sure, what they're all about, especially with the speed of the game on a Friday night and the physicality of the game. And then sometimes it doesn't pan out for you when you see them. But the ones that we have this year, the sophomores we have playing, have just gotten better each and every week. And I think it helps when you have seniors that are leaders. And so, we have 19 quality seniors that have helped them out. I go back to G.T. Baker on defense. He's helping these sophomores out from very early in the season. He's almost like another coach on the field. And same with Gavin James, and our defensive coaches have done an outstanding job just working with these guys and giving them the confidence that they need. But when you have seniors that bring the underclassmen along with them and invite them or are inviting to them playing defense and getting on the field and then seeing that confidence grow, I think that's a big deal for them. And then by midseason, they look seasoned, and they just keep getting better from there.
Coach, wanted to ask you about Cam Livingston. He was a kid that, the season was cut short last year for you in week 2 against Angola. How has he been this year for you?
He's done a great job. Cameron plays on both sides of the ball. He plays in our secondary, does a great job there. And, he's a wide out for us. And, we've been fortunate enough to really run the ball well this year. So, he might not have a lot of receptions, but, when we need him, he's there. I know against Huntington North, he had a great game. He had 3 or 4 receptions and a touchdown. So he's a reliable target for Jackson, and he is a kid that we can look to when we absolutely need to get him the ball, and we can trust that Cameron's going to do the right thing and make plays for us.
Coach, we mentioned that trip to DeKalb coming up on 9. You see DeKalb play. Pete Kemp doing a great job, 4 straight victories. Their lone loss to East Noble, just like you guys. What do you expect on Friday?
Well, we expect a highly physical football game. We really see a lot of similarities between our two ball clubs. Both teams like to run the football. Both teams are physical and big up front. And so, we kind of see a very physical match and a game that really is going to have to be won in the trenches this Friday. And the line of scrimmage and who controls that is going to be a huge part of this ball game.
Somebody's going to feel pretty good heading into the postseason with the win over a quality opponent on Friday. Will it be Leo? Will it be DeKalb? We'll have to see coming up, 7 o'clock kick. Coach, always a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Good luck prepping for the Barons.
Hey, thanks, Justin.
That's Coach Jared Souter, Leo Lions, joining us to talk some Leo Lion football. 7-1, looking to go 8-1 at DeKalb on Friday night. 3 straight wins for Leo, 4 straight for DeKalb, both in a very, very competitive sectional 19. Both have tough opponents, with Leo having to take on Angola in week 1. DeKalb welcomes Columbia City in week 1 of the postseason. But before we talk about that, we got week 9, and it's a big game for both teams. We're going to step out when we come back, talk to Coach Jason Dorfler, Northrop Bruins, here on the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM.
On the field, your team wants to finish every drive with a score. With a new Chevy from Crumback Chevrolet, you'll prefer to keep driving. Maybe in the new and redesigned Silverado, the most dependable full-size pickup and best-in-class fuel economy. Or the Equinox, with modern design and technology, all packaged into a safe and versatile crossover. Looking for more family space? Then the mid-size Traverse will get you where you're going in style and comfort. And you can't lose with the Malibu or the all-new Blazer. Score today and find new roads this season with a visit to Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven.
The stigma of addiction is destroying lives across the country, preventing our loved ones from getting the help and treatment they desperately need. We are Shatterproof, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the stigma and devastation that addiction causes families. We're changing laws, we're creating a community of support, and we're providing evidence-based resources for prevention, treatment, and recovery. We are working hard every single day to reduce the secrecy and remove the shame of addiction. Stigma shatters lives. Rise up against addiction so another life isn't lost to this disease. Join the Shatterproof movement. Get involved today and learn more at shatterproof.org/riseup. That's shatterproof.org/riseup.
We've always had villains to face.
Bad guys to take down. But you are the most horrible of all. We're here because we've had enough of you.
One person is not a team.
But when we join together, you don't stand a chance.
Marvel Studios' Avengers Endgame, MasterCard, and Stand Up to Cancer are joining together today to help take down one of the biggest villains of all, cancer. Join us now at standuptocancer.org/MasterCard.
Seeing the world through new eyes and the earth from miles above. Not just breaking news, but breaking barriers. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives with your gifts. Your heart could keep beating. Your kidneys could keep filtering. And your intestines could keep on digesting for others. And that's not all. You can improve the lives of 50 more people as an eye and tissue donor, restoring sight and health. And you're not just helping out the person receiving the transplant. You're touching whole families with your life-saving gift. Register in minutes. Just go to organdonor.gov. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Sign up today. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Your sports for Fort Wayne, Northern Indiana, Indy, and more. The Pat McAfee Show, weekdays starting at 2, right up to the sports rush at 4. Listen now on the new ESPN Fort Wayne app and on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Eating, working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. Will you volunteer to help people like Richard, a U.S. naval veteran who suffered severe PTSD after his service? He was left homeless for a period of time, and his oral and overall health are suffering. Because of congressional limitations, the VA can't provide the dental help he needs. Through our Will You See One Vet program, we focus on helping U.S. military veterans like Richard. Now we are seeking more general dentists and specialists to donate treatment to at least one veteran with special needs. When you volunteer with DLN's program to see one vet, we handle the details so you can focus on the care. If you are a dentist or know a dentist, please share this message and help us make a difference in the life of a veteran in need. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
Now back to the High School Coaches Show with Justin Kenny on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back for the final time for the Week 9 edition of the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet, where we're efforting Jason Dorfler fresh off the practice field. Hopefully we'll get to talk to him in a couple minutes. Actually, he's not on the practice field. He's actually in the main field. Doesn't have to be on the practice field now with soccer over as well, so field's all his for practice at Spohler Stadium on the turf. Thank you to Coach Jared Souter before the break for joining us, talking some Leo football, and brought up an interesting point with having to trust sophomores on the field and having to thrust them into positions that, man, you're not entirely sure that they're ready for yet until they get out there. And he has a couple kids in Jackson Barber at quarterback and Landon Livingston, a 6'5", 260 lineman, having to put him up there up front to battle. So I guess if you're big or you're big, doesn't really matter the grade, but you still have to understand the nuances of blocking and schemes and all that. And Rylan Crawford is another one, a wide receiver that Leo has had to look to. So at some point, every good team needs to trust a couple kids that are either underclassmen or inexperienced or new or whatever. And sometimes success and failure comes down to those guys playing. So it seems like Leo is getting that where they need it. East Noble as well, another prime example of sophomores stepping up, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Last Sunday we did have the sectional draw for the state of Indiana for the 47th annual IHSAA football state tournament. It's a blind draw. Everybody makes the playoffs. People will talk about should it be seeded, should every team make the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. That's a argument or a discussion for another day, but plenty to talk about with the draw that came out on Saturday. We talked to Dan Vance about it a little bit, but wanted to look at some of the storylines for each class. As you look at, Sectional 44, you have Adams Central down there at the bottom of the bracket. You have Southwood at the top of the bracket. Now, Southwood is undefeated. They'll go to Cherubusco to open the postseason. Southwood and Adams Central have played the last 3 years in the postseason. 2016, it was in the regional. 2017, it was a sectional. 2018 was a sectional. And Adams Central has won twice. Southwood won once. So could we get Adams Central Southwood 4 in the sectional championship game. I don't think Adams Central has a problem with the bottom half. I think Cherubusco could be a thorn in the side for Southwood in the top half. So we'll have to watch that play out because we could get another game in what is quickly becoming a Southwood Adams Central postseason rivalry. Sectional 43. South Adams. They're the only team that's above 500 other than Monroe Central, a team that they already beat this year. And so they'll probably give Monroe Central a second round, but you have to feel pretty good if you're the Starfires. They're open at Tri-Central to start the postseason. We talked about that Class 2A Sectional 35 with Bishop Luers in it. That's 2-6, that everybody's kind of pseudo excited about the Knights once they get in the postseason. And even I've been kind of tooting that horn throughout the year that, hey, they just need to survive and get to the sectional. They get Central Noble to start the sectional play at home, and then they'll get either Eastside or Woodland, and neither of those are a guarantee, particularly Eastside, because they would host that second round game. And I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Todd Mason's team could clip Bishop Luers. So by no means do I think that sectional is Bishop Luers to lose in Class 2A. And you have Bluffton sitting there in the top half of that sectional that could also have something to say about it. Class 3A, you look at sectional 26. That's where Garrett is. That's where West Noble is. They have to go to a John Glenn team at 3-5 that beat South Bend, Washington a couple weeks ago. That's 6-2. That's also in this sectional. So that's not an easy game for West Noble at all. Mishawaka Marion probably the favorite in this sectional. West Noble probably get Mishawaka at home if they win in the first round. It's going to be a very, very tough game against a traditional power in Marion. Sectional 27 looks like Concordia goes to Maconaquah. Maconaquah's rushed for over 3,000 yards this year. Now, you can say that their schedule is lacking, but rushing for 3,000 yards is still pretty darn impressive. 6 victories is pretty impressive. Concordia on the road at Maconaquah and Grant County to open up postseason. That'll be a game that not a lot of people will talk about. Less people will go to in this area, but really will be a score to watch coming up a week from Friday. You look at sectional 19 in Class 4A. That's East Noble's to lose. DeKalb and Leo, threats, but they've already lost to East Noble. Could an Angola get hot? They're already won 4 straight. You could make the argument there. Sectional 20 looks like it's Marion's to lose. Mississinewa at 7-1 could be a threat, but I think Marion has too many athletes. You look at sectional 11 in Class 5A, and Bishop DeWanger and Northside. The rematch at Chambers Field. No Deuce Taylor the first time around in week 2. Northside kept that game scoreless after the first quarter before Bishop DeWanger got going and ran away with it. Can Northside be a bigger threat this time around? Could be. And I think a sneaky difficult game for Homestead at Noblesville to start the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go to Noblesville and lose. Noblesville is 1-7. But you got to get on a bus. It's a long road trip. You play a team that plays in arguably the third best conference in the state, the Hoosier Crossroads. They're playing teams like Fishers and teams like that. And it's a quality football team that plays in a very difficult conference. So it's not an easy game by any means. Homestead's going to win that game, but it's not like if they go through the motions, it's going to be an easy run. They got to show up. And, oh, by the way, Carroll Snyder, probably the best first-round matchup in sectional play. Remember what happened the first time around at Spuller Stadium. Blocked extra point was the difference. 21-20 win for Snyder. Can Carroll avenge that loss? Can Snyder keep it going and set up that Snyder-Homestead rematch? That will be where all eyes are on Friday, November 1st, after the bye week for 5A and 6A next week when everyone else gets started. That's going to do it for us here. That's a quick rundown of the sectional draw. Take a deep breath here, but that's the breakdown. We'll have plenty more to talk about next week as we further break down some of these matchups. We'll also take a look back at Week 9 as well. Thank you to Dan Vance for joining us, Coach Andy Thomas, Angola Hornets, and Jared Souter of the Leo Lions for coming on. DC Hendricks, producer, always a pleasure.
Always love doing it, man.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Even when it smells like onions in there.
I apologize. I'll smell better next week. All right. For DC Hendricks, I'm Justin Kenny. You've been listening to the ESPN Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Podcasts by Federated Media. Podcasts by Federated Media.